Hello, my name is Slashing Slammer, and welcome to Drawing Through Elden Ring. The first thing I want to do is give a shout out to Tangaroo. His series on drawing all bosses in Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 3, and Bloodborne were the direct inspiration for this video and the videos to come. Like in Tengu's videos, our player's equipment will be changing each video. There are a lot of cool weapons and armor to show off in Elden Ring that I look forward to drawing. I will also be talking about the lore of the game because, as with all From Software games, the details to the story is complex, confusing, and pretty difficult to piece together at times. Unlike Tangaroo series, I will not be doing all bosses because Elden Ring has 165 bosses and I don't really have time for that. However, I plan to follow a path through the main story, drawing many of the bosses that you encounter on that path. But I will be planning to sort of limit how many times we draw similar bosses. For example, if I drew every boss encountered on the main path, I'd end up drawing Tree Sentinel Duo, and then the very next video would be the Draconic Tree Sentinel, which would kind of get a little redundant. But I do plan to do all Remembrances and a few other bosses here and there that I think would be fun to include. Before getting into our first boss, I want to give a brief synopsis of the world of Elden Ring. Elden Ring takes place in the Lands Between. Now, the Lands Between are currently in shambles after an event known as the Shattering, where Queen Marika, leader of the Golden Order, shattered the Elden Ring into 7 pieces. Okay, technically it's in 8 pieces, but one of those pieces was separated before the Shattering. We'll get into that much later on in the series. Each of those 7 shards were then taken by a demigod. We'll get into who Marika is, what the Golden Order is, what a demigod is, and of course what the Elden Ring is later on. For now, what matters is that we come to this land that is a shadow, pun intended, of its former glory. One other thing I'd like to talk about before moving on to the boss lore is our player character, the Tarnished. Because who is the Tarnished? Well, Tarnished is actually a group of people who are connected to Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. They're either his soldiers in his army, his kinsmen, or maybe even both. The Tarnished were banished from the Lands Between and robbed of their grace by Queen Marika. Grace is a conversation for another time. We don't have time for that right now. After the Shattering, some of the banished Tarnished began to see traces of grace again, and so they returned to the Lands Between. This is where we begin Elden Ring, a lowly Tarnished who has returned to the Lands Between to try and become Elden Lord. Now, onto the subject of this drawing, the Grafted Scion. I find the Grafted Scion to be a pretty intriguing boss lore-wise, because while we have a pretty solid understanding of its story, none of it is actually mentioned anywhere. There's no dialogue, item descriptions, sword monuments, or any other source that I can find at least, that tells us the backstory of the Grafted Scions. Even checking the info given by the sword and shield they drop simply says they were armaments wielded by Knights of the Golden Order, which the Scions most certainly are not. All our knowledge about this well-armed enemy comes from its appearance and name. It can be difficult to see and realize when you're fighting this one-man army. Alright, I'll stop, sorry. But if you take a look at it when it's not trying to turn you into a pincushion, you can see that while the body is made up of an abundance of arms, hands, legs, and even torsos, as you can see by the spines that are poking out of its body, there's only one head. Now logically, this implies the head is the main or original body. Quick side note, the how of these bodies being put together is through a process called grafting, which is where the name Grafted Scion comes from. We'll get into the details of grafting in just a few videos when we draw the Scion's Master, and also our first Great Rune boss, Godric the Grafted. Now back to the appearance, if you take a closer look at the head, and also the torso attached to it, it appears to be the face of a boy in his early teens. Now get ready for some very clever naming by FromSoft. The word Scion has 2 definitions. The first definition is a young shoot or twig of a plant, especially one cut for grafting or rooting. And the second is a descendant, usually a young male, of a wealthy, aristocratic, or influential family.
Clever girl.
These clues lead us to one of 2 conclusions about the Grafted Scion. The first theory is that the Scions are sons of nobles who are loyal to Godric that likely volunteered their child for the honor of grafting. Alternately, they may be children of Godric, either by blood or adoption, that he subjected to grafting in order to strengthen his armies or possibly even his bloodline. Either way, we see that the Grafted Scions are honored by Godric through the cloak that they wear. Godric has a similar cloak on that blows away in the wind at the beginning of his boss fight. The design is a little different, but they certainly are reminiscent of each other. Perhaps the cloak is a gift granted after the completion of the grafting process. The final thing I want to discuss regarding the Grafted Scions is their placement in the game. The fact that there are only 6 Scions in the entirety of Elden Ring, when a lot of enemies get reused, tells me that FromSoft put at least some thought into the placement of these enemies. These are only theories, so if you disagree or have anything to add, please feel free to talk about it in the comments. There are 2 Scions to be found in the Hero's Tomb in Limgrave. My leading theory is that they are there to either protect or possibly rob Banished Knight Oleg's grave. I lean a little bit more towards protect based on Oleg's service to the Golden Order and Godric's allegiance there, but Godric is also pretty whack and has some reasons to be upset with the Golden Order, so who knows. The one we encounter in Stormville Castle is pretty self-explanatory. It's Godric's castle, it makes sense to encounter one. There's one in Liurnia disguised as Deadshot, aka a giant lobster, the worst enemy in the game. The disguise is likely a reference to the fact that Godric stole the Mimic's Veil when he was run out of Leyndell, and the reason for the Scion being there is likely the same as the one we find in Mount Gelmir. That reason being that it's made very clear that the demigods are very hostile to one another, and the Scions are likely sent as scouts to find or clear out a way to the Shardbearer of those lands. And of course, last but not least, is the Grafted Scion right here, at the Chapel of Anticipation. It seems to have been stationed here in anticipation of Tarnished returning to the lands between. Exactly why is open to debate. It certainly doesn't make sense to be there just to kill any rivals due to the Tarnished's ability to come back to life with the guidance of grace. One theory I've seen from some other people online is that the Scion was placed here to harvest body parts for grafting from arriving Tarnished. Our player character is able to avoid this fate by being, and I'm quoting Godric if he kills you in his boss fight here, "Lowly Tarnished, thou art unfit even to graft." But all these are just theories. Please don't sue me. Alright, that's everything I have to say about the Grafted Scion. For the first 3 videos in the series, I plan to use different starting classes. Obviously for this one we went with the Bandit class. Honestly, I totally suck at fighting Scions, I always just fight them way over leveled, but I've seen better players use a parry strategy, so I thought that the Bandit class would make sense because of its starting shield, the Buckler, which gives slightly more parry frames than other shields. Daggers having stronger critical attacks also fits well together with the build. For the next video, I plan to make a slight detour from the main path of the game because, well, let's be honest, that's what FromSoft wants us to do. Market being placed and scaled where it is 100% them saying, "We made an open world, go explore it." So we're going to follow their wishes and go fight a boss I thought was cool when I fought him the first time, but then when he showed up in several other duo bosses, he got kinda lame. And that is Leonine Misbegotten. After the first 3 videos, though, I will be looking at comments to see what weapons/armor are suggested to use for the next drawing. The only caveat to this being for a specific scenario where a weapon is necessary. Rykard! The weapon or armor also needs to be accessible with where we are in the story, i.e. we can't wear Radahn's armor if we haven't killed Radahn yet. Though if the equipment is locked behind an unimportant boss that we're not likely to find on the main path, then that's okay. As an example, the Moonveil Katana is behind a Falling Star Beast boss, but if I'm going to draw one of those, it would definitely be the full-grown one, so the one in the cave is perfectly fine. Feel free to discuss in the comments. If I got something wrong, please let me know. I can only do so much research. And if you happen to be an artist watching this who was appalled by my horrible workflow or any of the other things that I do wrong while drawing, I would be delighted to hear your advice. My main goal with this series is to improve my drawing skills. Thank you so much to everyone who watched this, and I hope you'll stick around for the next drawing. Goodbye.